the strange rule of my life revealed itself when I was 7 years old. I was sitting at the kitchen table of our cramped apartment, staring at a single cupcake my mother had bought for my birthday. It was vanilla with pink frosting, the kind that came 3 in a pack from the grocery store, and I had been looking forward to it all week. My stepsister Sabine, who had moved in 6 months earlier along with her father Harold after he married my mother, was sitting across from me, her eyes fixed on the cupcake with an expression I had already learned to recognize. Hunger, not for food, for whatever was mine. I wish I had a bigger piece of cake, I whispered to myself, not really meaning anything by it. Just a child's idle desire. The next morning, my mother surprised me with a second cupcake. She had found an extra one in the back of the fridge, she said, and thought I deserved it. I was delighted. But Sabine, sitting at the same table, had 2 cupcakes in front of her point four, double what I had received. She ate them slowly, deliberately, staring at me the entire time with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The pattern repeated itself over and over. When I was 10, I wished for a new bicycle for Christmas. I received a modest blue Schwinn. Sabine received 2 bicycles, a mountain bike and a racing bike. When I was 13, I wished for my crush, a boy named Marcus Chun, to notice me. He asked me to the school dance. Sabine was asked by 2 boys, including Marcus Chun, who had apparently changed his mind about me and decided he preferred my stepsister. When I was 16, I wished for a scholarship to the summer writing program at the local college, and I received a partial scholarship that covered half the tuition. Sabine received 2 full scholarships to 2 different programs, neither of which she attended because she had no interest in writing. Sabine got double, always double. Whatever I wished for, whatever I earned, whatever I loved, Sabine received twice as much, twice as good, twice as adored. And the most devastating doubling of all was my mother's love. My mother, Celeste Vance, had always been distant. Even before Harold and Sabine moved in, she had looked at me with an expression that was equal parts expectation and disappointment, as if I were a project she had started but never quite finished. But after Sabine arrived, the distance became a chasm. Sabine called her Mom. Sabine braided her hair. Sabine told her she was beautiful, that she was the best mother in the world, that she loved her more than anything. And my mother, my own mother, glowed under the attention like a flower turning toward the sun. If you were more like Sabine, my mother told me once, maybe people would love you too. That was the day I learned the last of the rules. Whatever Sabine took from me, my mother would love her twice as much for taking it. The nature of the rules slowly dawned on me. IT was not a curse. I realized IT was a challenge. Sabine had spent her life exploiting my desires, using my wishes as a roadmap to take what she wanted. But if my wishes dictated what she received, then I could control the game. I just needed to start wishing for things that would destroy her. The turning point came on my 24th birthday. Sabine had thrown herself a lavish party, twice the size of anything I had ever had, and was holding court in the center of the room, surrounded by admirers. She was wearing a dress I had admired in a shop window weeks earlier, only to find it sold out in my size and mysteriously available in hers. She was laughing, her hand resting on the arm of a man I had been seeing, a kind, gentle architect named Daniel, who was now apparently her boyfriend. "Happy birthday, dear sister," she said, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. "I hope all your wishes come true." I looked at her for a long moment. "Thank you, Sabine. I hope so, too." That night, I sat alone in my tiny studio apartment and made a list, not of things I wanted, but of things Sabine would get if I wished for them. The system was simple. My wish was the input. Sabine's double was the output, and if I chose the right inputs, the outputs would tear her apart. The next morning, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, looked myself in the eye, and spoke the first wish aloud. I wish I had a 26-year-old boyfriend. It was a simple wish, a harmless wish, the kind of wish any single 24-year-old woman might make. And I waited. 2 days later, Sabine posted a photo on Instagram. She was standing beside a man I had never seen before. He was 52 years old, completely bald, with a paunch that strained the buttons of his cheap suit. His arm was wrapped around Sabine's waist, and his smile revealed a mouthful of crooked yellow teeth. The caption read, "Asterisk, found my soulmate. Age is just a number. Asterisk. I had wished for a 26-year-old boyfriend. Sabine got double. Double 26 is 52. Double youth is age. Double vitality is decay." The mathematics of the rule were merciless, and for the first time in my life, they were working in my favor. Sabine's new boyfriend, whose name was Gerald, was a used car salesman with a gambling problem and two ex-wives who had both filed restraining orders against him. He moved into Sabine's apartment within a week. He borrowed her car and crashed it. He maxed out her credit cards. And he told her, repeatedly and loudly, that she was the most beautiful woman he had ever met, which, given his dental situation, was not the compliment she seemed to think it was. But I wasn't finished. The second wish came 2 weeks later. I stood in the same bathroom, looked in the same mirror, and spoke the words that would change everything. I wish I could lose 10 pounds. The effect was almost immediate. I woke the next morning feeling lighter, my jeans fitting a little looser, my reflection a little sharper. Sabine, meanwhile, lost 20 pounds in 3 days. She was hospitalized with severe malnutrition, her body consuming itself from the inside out. The doctors were baffled. They ran tests, consulted specialists, tried every treatment they knew. Nothing worked. Sabine wasted away before their eyes, her perfect figure collapsing into something gaunt and hollow, her cheekbones jutting out like knife blades, her eyes sinking into dark pits. When she was finally discharged, weak, trembling, a shadow of her former self, her father came to my apartment. Harold Morrow, the man who had married my mother and moved into my home and treated me like a servant while his daughter lived like a princess. He was not the confident, condescending stepfather I remembered. He was hunched and gray-faced, his hands shaking, his eyes red-rimmed from crying. "Please," he said, his voice cracking. "Please, Alara, stop making wishes. Whatever you're doing, whatever this is, just stop. Sabine can't take any more. She's dying. She's dying, and the doctors don't know why. But I know it's you." I looked at him for a long moment. You knew the rule existed. You knew what Sabine was doing to me for 17 years, and you never stopped her. You never told her it was wrong. You just watched while she took everything I had and doubled it for herself. And now you're asking me to stop? I'm begging you. Begging isn't enough. But I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. I'll make one more wish. Just one. And after that, I'll be done. Fair. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. One more. Just one. Please, make it something harmless. I smiled. It was not a kind smile. The wish is simple. I wish I could stay up for an extra 6 hours every night. Harold stared at me. He didn't understand. He thought I was being generous. An extra 6 hours of productivity, of reading, of doing whatever I wanted while the world slept. What he didn't realize was that Sabine would get double 6 hours, 12 hours, every single night, a complete reversal of the sleep cycle. A schedule that would make it impossible for her to work, to socialize, to function in a world that operated during daylight hours. The effects began the next day. Sabine started staying up later and later, her body clock shifting against her will. Within a week, she was awake for 20 hours a day, her mind fraying at the edges. Within a month, she was nocturnal, awake all night, exhausted all day, her life shrinking to the dark hours when no one else was around. Her job fired her. Her friends stopped calling. Gerald, the bald boyfriend, left her for a cocktail waitress he met at the track. And Sabine, the golden girl who had taken everything from me, was alone in her apartment at 3 a.m, staring at the walls, her mind unraveling thread by thread. The final unraveling came at a family dinner 3 months later, and my mother had insisted on it, hoping to heal the rift between us. Sabine arrived looking like a ghost, pale and gaunt, her eyes ringed with dark circles, her hands trembling. She was awake for 12 hours every night, the curse having locked her into a permanent nocturnal cycle from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. She hadn't slept more than a few fragmented hours in weeks. Her speech was disjointed. She laughed at things that weren't funny and stared blankly when someone asked her a question. "Alara," she whispered, her voice hoarse. Please stop. I can't take it anymore. The nights, the darkness, the silence, it's killing me. Please, whatever I did to you, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Whatever you did to me, I set down my fork. You spent 17 years taking everything I had and doubling it for yourself. My achievements, my loves, my mother's affection. You took all of it and you never once apologized. You never once felt guilty. You just kept taking because you thought the rule would protect you forever. But the rule cuts both ways, Sabine. It always did. I just had to learn how to use it. My mother stood up, her face wet with tears. Alara, how can you be so cruel? She's your sister. She's my stepsister, and you're my mother, but you spent 17 years loving her more than you ever loved me. You called me cold and distant while she called you beautiful. You told me I should be more like her. Well, mother, this is what being like Sabine looks like. Taking what you want and never apologizing that I learned from the best. Harold slammed his fist on the table. You promised one more wish, and then you'd stop. I did stop, and I made the wish weeks ago. The fact that Sabine is still suffering isn't my fault. The rule is the rule. Double is double. And insomnia, well, insomnia doesn't just go away because you say sorry. Sabine let out a sound that was somewhere between a laugh and a sob. I'm going to be like this forever? Forever. I confirmed. The rule doesn't reverse. It only doubles. You taught me that. I'm just a better student than you ever were. I stood up, placed my napkin on the table, and walked toward the door. Behind me, my mother was weeping, Harold was shouting, and Sabine was laughing that strange, broken laugh of someone who had finally realized the game was over and she had lost. And in that moment, I felt nothing. Not guilt, not satisfaction, just the quiet, steady hum of justice, long delayed but finally, irrevocably delivered. Third-party objective commentary by Dr. Helena Mirren, clinical psychologist and author of The Arithmetic of Family Systems. The double wish rule case represents a fascinating inversion of the classic Cinderella narrative. In the traditional fairy tale, the wicked stepsister is punished by external forces, birds pecking out eyes, feet mutilated to fit a glass slipper. In Alara Vance's story, the stepsister is punished by the very mechanism she exploited. The rule that Sabine used to enrich herself becomes, in Alara's hands, a precision instrument of destruction. The psychological acuity of Alara's wishes is what elevates this from simple revenge to strategic genius, a 26-year-old boyfriend doubled to 52. Not lethal, but humiliating. 10 pounds lost doubled to 20, physically devastating but survivable, and the masterstroke, 6 extra waking hours doubled to 12, an irreversible circadian disruption. Each wish was harmless on its surface. Each doubled effect was catastrophic, and each was irreversible, for the rule that Sabine herself had exploited for 17 years. The insomnia wish, in particular, demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of the rule's mechanics. Unlike the first 2 wishes, which targeted Sabine's body, the third targeted her relationship to time itself. It exiled her from the diurnal world, made her unemployable, unrelatable, and ultimately unseeable, a perfect mirror of the emotional exile Alara endured throughout her childhood. The confrontation at the family dinner is a study in emotional asymmetry. Sabine, broken by the rule she once wielded, finally apologizes, but her apology is transactional, desperate, a bid for relief rather than genuine remorse. Alara's response is cold, precise, and mathematically irrefutable. I learned from the best. The victim has become the master, and the master has no intention of surrendering her hard-won expertise. Sabine's condition did not improve. The insomnia was permanent, locked into her circadian rhythm by the same inexorable mathematics that had once given her 2 bicycles and 2 scholarships. She tried sleep clinics, she tried medication, she tried meditation and hypnosis and every alternative therapy the internet could offer. Nothing worked. The rule did not reverse, that IT only doubled. She moved into a small apartment in a neighborhood that was active at night. Bars and clubs and 24-hour diners where she could sit alone and watch the hours crawl past. She found work as an overnight security guard. She adopted a cat, a nocturnal creature who kept her company during the long, dark hours. And slowly, over years, she began to rebuild a life within the constraints of her condition. She did not apologize again. She did not ask for forgiveness. She simply lived, quietly, in the margins of the world, a ghost of the golden girl she had once been. My mother and Harold divorced 3 years after the dinner. Harold had never forgiven my mother for raising a monster, and my mother had never forgiven Harold for bringing Sabine into our home. They went their separate ways, each carrying their own share of the blame, and my mother wrote me a letter once, asking if we could start fresh. I wrote back that the rule didn't reverse. It only doubled. I am 31 years old now, and I live in a small house in a quiet neighborhood, with a garden I tend on weekends and a cat who sleeps on my pillow. I have a boyfriend, a kind, unremarkable man who is exactly 26 years old and has a full head of hair. I don't make wishes anymore if I don't need to. The rule is still there, humming in the background of my life like a refrigerator motor, but I've learned to live without invoking it. My stepsister is 43 and looks 70, and she still can't sleep at night. And somewhere, in the quiet hours between midnight and dawn, she remembers the girl who made cupcakes disappear and bicycles multiply and a mother's love double. She remembers, and she knows that every sleepless hour is a debt finally paid. The girl who was always second became the woman who made the rules. And the stepsister who took double earned too late. That doubling is a double-edged sword.